This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Hey, what's happening? What's Urbanology, yeah. The art of war with love and peace. Urbanology. The art of war with peace and love.
Good afternoon. This is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War. I hope all is well. Last week we were talking about the possibility of snow. One man's heaven is another man's hell, in a sense. But at least it's not as bad as it could have been. And I'm glad it was this week and not last week. If it was last week, obviously we will still be digging out. Nonetheless, this is January, and I hope everyone had a progressive and meaningful MLK Day. And now we're moving January, February. We will be moving to Black History Month and Valentine's Day and all of those things. I wanted to, excuse me, again, for those who I have not seen, Happy New Year. I wanted to have a time each week, starting in February, to start talking about some historic stuff as relates to the 50-year anniversary of Harlem Week and the many different things that have happened uh, since 1974 in Harlem and its development. So we'll have some interesting guests and some ways to kind of go down memory lane. A lot has happened in the Harlem community, in New York, and everywhere, I would imagine, in the last 50 years. But there has been a lot of different changes going on. A lot of tourism-related activity has developed. We have a new hotel and a number of other things, which is kind of a segue into my next guest. I was walking on 125th Street one Saturday, and I ran into, well, I was looking at different vendors and looking at what uh, they, you know, their exhibits. Sometimes I get a lot of my interviews and my articles that I write by talking to them, such as in this case. There was a lady who had an exhibit about organic pest control, ways to deal with pests, rodents, and many of the things that sometimes, unfortunately, we use chemicals to get rid of. And I thought that was a very interesting approach, and I wanted to have people become aware of it, those who were not. So my first guest, and again, let me not forget, this is the second Tuesday, so my co-host Charlene De La Cruz from Columbia University will be coming in. She's doing some interviews on their special business development program, but she and just came back from Birmingham for a conference, so we'll talk a little bit about that at the second half. But as it relates to now, please give a warm welcome to Miss uh, Daria Skeete.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing, my dear? It's good to see
Well,
you.
I'm not out in the elements, so I'm doing very well.
Well, it well we well, I think this is the it broke a record. We This is about the 700th day that we went without snow. I think the last snowstorm was in 2022. So uh, and it wasn't that bad. So we got
That's
to go
true.
with what we go with. As I had mentioned as far as the introduction, I was really amazed with your business. You've been involved in developing organic, natural ways to deal with pest control for, did you say about 19 years?
Correct. 19,
Right.
actually 19 years and February 1st.
And also, he was an adjunct at BMCC taught at the Advocating Boulevard State Office thing. And give us a little information about yourself and how you came into developing this herb bowl using herbs and other products to deal with pest control.
Okay, well, I'll start with the Reader's Digest part about myself. And I was a teacher in Harlem, an elementary school teacher, right on West 113th Street. The school was the Friends Academy, but it's since been changed to a charter school, so I don't know what the current name is. I also was an adjunct first. I taught for a number of years with District Council 37
Mhm.
in their literacy program. And then I was an instructor with BMCC as well, I'd say in between, actually, I went back to school and got a certificate from Long Island University in computer science. And I taught Microsoft Word, the whole Microsoft package,
Hmm.
and computer basics with BMCC.
Okay.
Um, During my days as a teacher in Harlem, um, I found an apartment that was very low price, the entire ground floor of a brownstone. And lo and behold, with things like that, there must be a catch. And the catch was that the apartment itself was very infested. Big water bugs, mice,
Mhm.
and you have to make a decision when you get an opportunity to rent a unit that is about more than half what you're paying presently. Mice, rodents, you're going to take it, whatever it is. So I immediately uh, sort of made a decision that I can't live with those things. So, and I have a lot of allergies.
Mm.
So I started researching organic pest control. And I initially found a firm in California that sold products. And it worked so well, I immediately wanted to, get into a business opportunity with them. And, that's how my business began.
And tell us, uh, as we were talking about some of the things that you were able to see and do as relates to being in this business with uh, looking at some of the problems that most people have.
Hmm. Well, one of the things, I'll say from a professional side as a teacher, that's very interesting is that um, I think I read in the Washington Post, but a study had been done that discovered that asthmatic children were missing 9 more days of school on average. And the reason has to do with pest dander. So when roaches are crawling, when mice are crawling, they're constantly excreting their waste. And that waste is very irritating to people who have certain sensitivities. So from a professional point of view, um, that was of interest to me. You're always, as a teacher, looking for ways to improve on a student's ability to even come to school. But the other part was I have a number of allergies myself, so that a use of any kind of pesticide is not something that I really wanted to try, and even traps are something that I didn't want to use, because what happens is obviously the pest, be it a roach or a rodent, has to come into your space in order to in order for that to work. So, what intrigued me about the company in California was that they were working with repellents. And as I became, more familiar with, if you will, the whole science of pest control, and also more familiar with the pests that I was dealing with, one of the things about all these pests is their sense of smell is absolutely tremendous, so that it makes sense to use their sense of smell against them. In addition, in studying, I found out, well, pest control, organic pest control in particular, is nothing new. You can go back to 500 AD, where some of the actual ingredients of what I was using and what I'm currently using were first used. So, I mean, our ancestors used herbs for a range of things, including pest control.
And which is interesting, because as we were talking, uh, I do know, even from my own experiences. At one point, I was our family, we were in a brownstone on 122nd Street, and I mean we didn't have any infestations, but anytime, especially in the wintertime, you're going to see mice, you're going to see uh,
Absolutely.
bugs and what have you. And we had a dog, and at that time, my daughter was very young, and obviously, you don't want to put anything down that can be harmful, which is one of the problems that we have uh, with pest control, especially with the city. We talked about that. We'll talk a little bit about some of the observations that you've seen. But
Hmm.
the other part of it is I would rather to run them away than have to kill them and have to deal with them, in the house. So uh, I was able to do a lot of things, with lavender and some other things that I was told that if you do this, if you uh, do certain types of things, which actually, like certain vinegars or things like that, are in your cabinet already. Can you talk about some of the natural ways that you, even to help or to support the different products that you have? And we have to talk about your website and some of the stores where your some of the stores that, in Harlem, that your product is going is
Right.
currently at. But can
Hmm.
you just give us some basic stuff that, as we were talking, and I've done some research, but I thought it was interesting how you have broken it down. Even plants, certain
Hmm.
plants can be used. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, well, first of all, as I mentioned before, the pest sense of smell is absolutely tremendous. So that there are compounds in plants, and obviously herbs are plants, that they can smell. And also, when you look at the fact that they're at the floor level, they're on the ground level. So I'll give an example. I was working with a restaurant in Harlem, and they had a outdoor shed. The Obviously people are eating at the outdoor shed, and that is like a gold mine for rodents. So the shed itself was surrounded by plants. And what we did was to just change the plants because there are plants that a rodent won't go near. So we went from a shed where the rodents were all over it to a situation where wouldn't even come near it. And the thing that's, sort of startling is that not only was it a cost effective solution, but depending upon the growing zone, for instance, New York is in the 7A growing zone. Okay. So that just indicates the kind of plant that you would need, and would be something more hardy, something that obviously can stand the colder temperature.
Right.
And one of the things that I mentioned to you is there's a wintergreen plant that people have probably seen all around New York because during the December, January, February time of year, the plant itself grows a red berry. And actually, the berry can last a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
That plant is a natural repellent. So, one of the things that I find, like, say, for instance, startling about New York City, as an example, and New York City waging war on rodents is that when you go to a park, you don't see wintergreen plants. And that is counterintuitive to wanting to really have a strategy. And I would probably say the city would want to have a cost-effective strategy in terms of combating rodents. It's impossible for you to take one strategy. For instance, now, the way I understand it, pretty much the strategy is to containerize the garbage. Okay. Rats are very smart, they can climb. So you can containerize the garbage all you want, but their natural instinct is going to be that they're going to find ways of getting food. So the issue becomes that there has to be multiple options, and organically, there are multiple plants that can be used, as well as even in the case of if you walk down many streets, let's say 125th Street in particular, okay, you'll see that around trees, and you see this even in the park, that there are very deep holes that have been dug by rodents because that is how they live. They dig tunnels into the ground. Well, one of the things that you would want to do, obviously, if it's outdoors anyway, you would want to try, or this, any city organization, private entity, even in your own backyard, to combat this. And there's two plants actually that I could mention. One is the wintergreen plant that I already mentioned. The other is called a Christ plant, which is a very thorny plant. And even indoors, it makes sense. People are aware of peppermint that rodents don't like, but there's peppermint plants. So as opposed to, if I was a, let's say, building owner, one of the things that I would want if my tenant was complaining about rodents, one of the first strategies, and a very low-cost strategy, is to bring them some peppermint plants, because that is going to be something that is very low maintenance, but extremely effective in terms of combating rodents in particular.
And those plants can grow outdoors and indoors.
Well, the wintergreen plant and the peppermint plant obviously can grow outdoors and indoors, but the peppermint plant is very susceptible to, cold weather. Mm-hmm. So you could bring it in, you can grow a peppermint plant indoors year round. Mm-hmm. And that, obviously the smell is quite pleasant, but even more important is that is going to be something that isn't pleasant to rodents. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, it depends upon the layout of your particular unit, but you would want to plant them strategically in places where a rodent would be able to encounter the aroma.
Mhm.
And what happens biologically is that when a rodent encounters something like a peppermint plant or a wintergreen plant, they emit a hormone. And the hormone is a fear hormone. Actually, mammals emit the same hormone. It's like if something scares you, okay? If you were to even smell something as a human that's unpleasant, your body is going to emit a hormone. But rodents can smell each other's hormone. So, if you will, that would be a tag that would be left behind that would indicate to another rodent, this isn't a place where you want to be. Well, I mean,
You know,
the whole,
I,
yeah.
I, I, what happens is that sometimes I know that uh, people are not always comfortable in talking about stuff. However, it is to me something that, based on where we are, especially with the city, I wrote an article about some of the things that I found when after talking to you, and mentioned you as the inspiration of the article that will be in the Harlem News this Thursday.
Mhm.
Some of the things that we talked about, which is interesting, is that how the poison that is being used in the city sometimes has a horrible effect on birds who might catch mice. I know that there are hawks sometimes that fly around, exotic birds that often have been seen, and we wonder why that they die is because their prey is the rats that got poison in them, and sometimes cats and dogs and all of those types of things. So it would seem that there's an interesting argument, as I had mentioned to you before, uh, of having dialogues with the city.
Well, I would say yes, that's very much true. But it's also a level of receptiveness
Uh,
on the part of the city, as well as actually businesses and even community members at large. Because a couple of different things about what you were just saying is one, the poisons that have been used on rodents and roaches have created what's called super rodents, super roaches at this point, where literally they are eating, let's say, for instance, in the case of rodents, they are eating the bait that's left out for them,
yeah.
as though it were food. And what even a few years ago, the city, there was a report in the newspaper that the bait that was being used was actually making rodents larger, more aggressive, and resistant.
Oh, oh my God.
So yeah, I mean, it's curious to say the least why you would continue to use something that's sort of not operating in the best interests of your aim.
Well, one
But
of the things, and we've talked about this, but one of the reasons, again, why I like to provide these types of platforms, and I'm happy that a Soul City Network, and I'm writing about it, because the pharmaceutical companies and the companies
the
that
chemical
create the
companies.
poisonous, it's almost like cigarettes. It's almost like any of the things that the reason why people didn't want cannabis to be, which is another deterrent too. But that's another story. But not wanting certain things to be put into the public's eye because it takes away from the bottom line as far as money.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure even with the city, there are lobbyists, there are people who represent these companies that will make sure that you don't hear a lot of these interviews on mainstream TV. And one of the great things about Soul City and having our ability, whether it's through newspapers or this vehicle or radio, is to allow for people to be more focused. Now, again, in many cases, and that's to be to stereotype anyone, the people who suffer the most are the people who cannot afford to do a lot of the things that uh, may be available for those who do not. So the marketing is not always to those people. And one of the things that I as I mentioned to you, I wanted you to become a member, and I'm glad that you agreed to be a member of the Harlem Tourism Board, is because the other nasty subject that people don't always like to talk about, and one of the things that since we have some new hotels coming in, and I wanted Charlene to hear this. Hopefully, she comes on. I'll introduce you to her before the end. And Matt, if Charlene ever gets in, please have her just come on when she can get on to the show. But bed bugs,
Oh boy, bedbugs. Mm-hmm.
and and I was doing some research, and Paris. I mean, they're supposed to be the 2024 Olympics, and one of the things that has them in a tizzy is that they have this horrible bedbug problem.
Tremendous
If
bedbug
you know
problem.
anyone that's going to Paris or other places in Europe, when they come back, make sure that they steam and do all of the stuff because they have a serious problem, which means that hotels are also having a tremendous problem. So,
Well, yeah. Actually, the problem is unnecessarily tremendous. Okay. The way in which I've been told at hotels that I have talked to about the way in which they deal with bed bugs is they usually call an exterminator. The exterminator quarantines the room where the problem is identified, in some cases adjacent rooms as well, and it's several days that those rooms aren't available. Now, taking into consideration how much it costs, let's say in New York or probably also in Paris for a hotel room, the amount of money involved with a bedbug sighting is tremendous, just from the point of view of having to close down rooms. In addition, the average settlement that I've read about in terms of someone reporting to have been bitten by bed bugs at a hotel and then filing a claim, the average settlement is $50,000. And it might even be more than that because that information I read several years ago. But there is zero reason for any hotel to have bed bugs. And the reason I say that is because in a hotel, as we speak, for the most part, are the ingredients to resolve a bed bug problem immediately. Okay. And part of it is through herbs. Okay. At one time, at least in hotels in Midtown, Manhattan, as an example, there used to be floral shops. Many of them had floral shops. And within the floral shops, lavender, as an example, is a very effective repellent for bed bugs. But again, the problem has been that exterminators have used pesticides on these bed bugs to the point where the bed bugs are becoming resistant.
could you
So,
hold that for us for a minute? I think Charlene De La Cruz may be uh, on that. Charlene,
Hello.
oh,
Hi,
how are
Tony.
you doing? Charlene, please, Daria Street, Charlene De La
mhm.
Cruz, who
Hi there.
is the person
How
who
are you?
is my co-host every uh, second Tuesday of the month.
Mhm.
Charlene, if you're a business and you want to do business at Columbia University, you have to know Charlene De La Cruz or Tanya Pope.
Yes.
Mm.
Especially if you are MWBEs or if you are people of color or female. They are the ones who do above and beyond the call of duty work and making sure that Columbia and all of its properties have people who uh, can have a opportunity to be there, which is why I wanted to have you on for her to hear some of this, because when you're talking about a hotel in Columbia is putting dormitories, when you talk about students, period, and
That's right.
where they're located, especially the properties that are going to be by the water, it's good for her to have in her mind things that you're talking about, because I don't know how much you've heard, Charlene, but there are ways to deal with cost effective and safe ways to deal with pesticides that you don't hear too much about, which is why I wanted to have this kind of conversations. But we were talking about something that was a kind of good segue for better or for worse, And sometimes it's hard to have these conversations, but they have to be had.
It is a little.
Bed bugs.
It's very hard to have this conversation. I will say.
But anyway, before and obviously we are moving into to time, so there are a couple of things before we finish this thing about hotels, because we could talk forever about some of the stuff that you're talking about. One, and we want to get back to the bed bugs and hotels, but one, give listeners your website and let them know if they would be interested in your product, where they might be able to get it.
Okay, the website is Herbal, and it's spelled HERBULL.com. And they can, find out information at the site about contact information, product information, even a little bit of information about, the history of using herbs for pest control. One of the things I'll mention is that Columbia is in a zone that the city deems as a rat portal. And it's sort of the perfect storm of a big park along the waterfront. Then you have the subway that's running along Broadway. So those two elements alone are going to, in this city, assure you that you're going to have a major infestation. But pretty much, the pandemic made the entire city a rat portal. It's not necessarily, confined to areas, but obviously, the fact that, let's say, Columbia or any other institution, when I was going over the summer to a jazz concert and you're walking along 120th Street and Broadway, the number of, rat bait traps that you see out along, that stretch of Broadway is startling, especially because I remember going to a concert and I was standing at the corner of Claremont and 120th, and here comes some rats just running out of the sewer. So the fact of the matter is that clearly you might have traps along the way, but obviously they found other headquarters to relocate to in the interim. But the other issue becomes is that using these pesticides against rodents has had the unintended consequence of tremendously impacting wildlife. I know, for instance, in Florida, there is a native, I think it's some kind of mountain lion, or I don't know exactly what the animal is, but it's native to Florida. And they found that these animals were dying. And the reason they surmised about why they were dying is because in locations relatively close to, the habitat of this animal is, a heavy use of pesticides. And the interesting part is, I'm not sure if the use of pesticides is on the food that's being grown or for rodents, which even, there's obviously another level of concern about pesticides when we begin to talk about our food supply.
Well,
But
listen, let
certainly,
me do this though, because
mhm,
this conversation, even though it makes you kind of squirm, is one that is important to know. I,
extremely.
Charlene, I have to end this pretty soon because there's some other pieces that we have to go on. However,
Yeah, I just wanted
I
to kind of
think,
like touch base, just kind of like formally introduce myself to Daria because I feel like I am the manager of University Supply Diversity, and I know that these are situations that are happening within our society, and it's not just one city, it's really happening all over.
Oh,
um
yes.
Definitely feel that, and I'm very proud that Columbia University does have a very strong sustainability management to look at all these different areas, like how are we being a good citizen to our community when it comes to rodents. They are part of our community. I did squirm a little bit when you talked about bed bugs and rodents and what, but it is what we have in the city. And we just have to manage it in a very environmental way. And I'm very proud to say that we do have a sustainability department that really manages this very well. I don't know, Tony, if you are aware of the little garden that we have on 119th Street on Morningside Drive,
yes.
actually Amsterdam. And that garden is actually used for our Columbia Secondary School to do farming and planting of different vegetables. It's actually one of the components within their curriculum. I was actually, a few years ago, right before the pandemic, we did have a very, unfavorable situation with a few rodents, and Turner Construction was able to donate a lot of good different tools for us to do irrigation around that garden. So it wasn't impacting the gardening for the students. They also had chickens. So all these little different ingredients made it kind of like a very playful place for rodents. And we all volunteer to kind of like have that irrigation system so that the student can continue to use the garden in a safe way, so that they can continue to do the learning that they need to do. I'm definitely interested for Daria to kind of like just to share some of the resources so that we can connect her with other, maybe like other pest companies that we've worked with in the past if they're interested, and we're definitely happy to introduce her to them.
One of the things before I let Daria go, and is something that I think that is important to put out there, is that I know that uh, she's, I know, semi-retired from being teaching and then starting another business, but has told me that she's looking to do more consulting. And one of the things that I also wanted to put into your head, because every time I say something, Charlene takes it into another. I love to have people like you there because she thinks and talks to people. That's another option that you might keep in the back of your head in case it comes up, that if someone, even plants or whatever, if there are plants that may be good to repel rodents, or
Yes. we-
if they're in the hotel or in the dorm, if there's a bed bug infestation, perhaps there could be a conversation that you can. I'm sure that you'll be able to get through us. And Daria is also a member of Harlem Tourism Board now. Her information, but I thought it would be important for you to hear this. But matter of fact, I think it's important for everyone to hear about this because we're talking about a subject, you know, um, talking about rodents is almost like talking about mental health sometimes in certain communities. Everybody
Oh,
knows
well, the fix
somebody in
mental health.
the family,
Okay.
has some issues, but no one wants to really talk about it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
or how to deal with it, especially certain things organically. As you
Yeah.
know, do a lot of writing about health and organic ways of dealing with stuff. But before I let you go, and I want to repeat this for those who are listening, and hopefully we'll write about this and have you say this again, which to me is almost frightening in a sense. Not that I have the problem, but there may be a problem that I would want to solve if I had a rodent to think that they are now beginning to like the food or the stuff that you put down as, to repel them. I mean, or to kill them, which I don't want to do anyway. Uh, that's frightening because the idea is that you're making them stronger when you could do a low cost approach that would
Mhm.
just make them go away. The last thing and you can't answer this, but one of the things that came into my mind is that if we start developing these plants, just like everything else, if they go away, where are they going to go? That's 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 another issue, which is not something that we can talk about here. But thank you so much for coming on, Daria. Before I let you go, give your website again, or some of the places where you might be able to buy your product, unless they can see that on your website. If they can see it on,
Okay. Oh, yeah. So all that information is on my website.
and
And
give,
the website is herbal, HERBBULL.com. And I'm just going to say something real quick is what I do is almost the opposite of what the exterminators do. So they haven't been very receptive because the results are fast, the results are low cost. And if you can go into your kitchen cabinet and use something that are going to get results, an exterminator is not going to be too happy about that.
well, that's why we have Soul City TV and many of the other vehicles to allow for people to know about these things. And thank you so much. And we'll talk. Matter of fact, don't forget our Harlem Tourism Board membership meeting is on the 24th. I want you to be there so we can introduce you to some of the other people. And there is an article about this coming out on Thursday in the Harlem Community News for those who uh, came in late, because I think it's very important. I think this is something that's extremely important, especially for families that have a lot of kids.
It's everybody. It's
We
yeah.
have a lot
It's
of
everybody.
and
It's
have a lot of
important.
pests, but
Hmm.
anybody, no matter who it is. Thank you so much. I appreciate your
Okay.
time,
Thank you.
Nice
and
meeting
we'll
you.
have you back on because there's some other things that we could talk about, especially how the weather, when it's hot, there's a problem. When it's cold, there's a problem. But we'll talk. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Bye bye.
much.
All right, Tony. Oh my goodness. Happy New Year. I feel like I haven't said that to you in person.
Yeah, it has been some time, but you've been traveling. This is the busiest woman
Oh
at
my goodness.
not City College. I wish you could come to City College, but we can't pay you what's Columbia. So that's a whole nother story. But tell us a little bit about, first of all, since yesterday was the birthday of Martin Luther King, and you were at a conference.
I definitely missed our usual programming. I did miss it because I was away on a conference. And the conference was actually invited. Is this better?
Come up a little bit. I
Oh,
think
okay.
there you go. Well, a little bit. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. Okay.
Tanya is actually part of an association which is called
Tanya
the
Pope, who used to be the person that I was doing this show with until she said, I have somebody else that, which happened to Tanya also. So I have somebody else, and we never look back. I got to tell you though, Charlene, I think
I
uh,
didn't disappoint.
we've done some things that we haven't been able to do with any of my other partners that have come from Columbia University.
That's
So
so kind. Thank you.
really, really appreciate you. But nevertheless, tell us about your Alabama.
Yes. So Tanya is a member of this association that is called the United States Association of Small Business Services. The association is really dedicated on entrepreneurship education and learning different theories, frameworks in terms of delivering entrepreneurship programs within different colleges and universities. I would say it was such an amazing experience for me because I'm a New Yorker. I've been in New York. I know New York. So to be out of New York and be in a different element and engage with other professors, professionals, practitioners, that are from all different parts of the United States, even international. There were people from Africa that were there. There were people from Colombia. There were so many people from different countries that it was just an amazing, and like we all have that one goal in terms of how do we educate ourselves on entrepreneurship? Like, what does that mean? What are the tools? What are the new trends? So it was an amazing experience. It was in Birmingham, Alabama, which was my first time being there. Being in the conference, everyone kind of has like a special interest group that they will go to. And our interest group, of course, is a minority and women entrepreneurship group. And I had the esteemed honor to go through the Birmingham Civil Rights Center. And that was a moment for me, Tony. I literally walked through every different just piece of history throughout the entire center. And it was a very shocking effect for me. So I feel like we need to have centers throughout the entire United States of America. Like every state needs their own civil rights center because
Matter of fact, one is coming on 125th Street
it is good because we
in
need
the
it.
in the Urban League building. There's going to be a civil rights museum,
We definitely need
which
it. I feel like
should be open next, if not the end of this year, pretty soon.
yeah, it was just every different exhibition was so powerful. Every piece of history was displayed so beautifully, but then it was so hurtful to see at the same time. But I felt that it was the perfect timing because when I arrived back Sunday night, it was Martin Luther King's, Jr.'s birthday and celebration and observant. And I felt like leaving that trip, I feel like I definitely honor that birthday even more on Monday because it was the work that he has done along with so many other people. I wouldn't be able to do the work that I'm doing right now because of him. And that speaks volumes. I would not even be sitting here or working here if it wasn't for him, for the work that he has done.
Well, as smart as you are, you would be someplace. But nevertheless, tell us about See You Grow.
So I'm happy to report, and I feel like I said this before, but See You Grow actually is doing 2 tracks for 2024. So we had the esteemed honor to be awarded a contract with the federal government in partnership with the Sun New York City Bot Capital to deliver 2 tracks of the See You Grow Vendor Development Program. So not only do I have to engage year to year, I always say that I need to engage with 20 businesses. This year, I'm looking to engage with 42 businesses.
Oh my
And with the 42 businesses, I do need a little bit more coaches to support us in this effort because I can't expect that all my coaches are going to double up because I'm not a tyrant. So I definitely need more coaches.
I don't know. I've heard a little story about you,
No.
Sergeant.
So I need more coaches. I need more businesses. We've hosted over 2 information sessions from December to January, actually 3. And we're hosting our last one tomorrow at 5. And really, if you are a business that is within the trade industry of the building industry, if you have maybe a commercial cleaning company, if you have a plumbing company, electrician, please come and join us at our information session that we're having tomorrow at 5. It's going to be a great conversation so that we can do a quick layout of what is the See You Go program, what is the benefit for you as a business, what does that mean for you, why should you be part of this, and we really want to support more businesses to support the effort that we're doing. I'm happy to report that within the 7 years that I've been part of the program, we've been able to award $126 million to businesses. And
7 years.
counting the top level. That's just counting like direct spend from Colombia to the business owner. That's not counting the subcontractor spend. And that's huge. That's really huge. And I feel that we have a lot of work that's available for businesses. And we also have a lot of great experts that want to support businesses.
Well, again, Colombia, and I'll say this positively, but for better or for worse, is going to be with us long after we're gone. and
That
their business opportunities will be with us long after we're gone, which means if you are a business and there's a person like Charlene De La Cruz or Tanya Pope there, take advantage of her while you can, because if you are able, if you're qualified, and if all of those things are equal, you can have a business that will last you generational. I mean, your grandchildren might be able to do the same thing because
yeah,
they will be around that long. So it's
and I,
important to have this information.
and I feel like almost I don't know if you recall, like Johnson Security, it's a perfect example, like how that generational business
Mhm.
has still continue to support the university for security needs, and we've actually had a good opportunity for them to have at the Irving Medical Center actually last year, I believe,
Right.
and they still are continuously working with the university, and we hope to kind of like expand. I feel like sometimes people think that they can only offer one thing, and then something very unique happens, and then only that one firm can do it. So never pigeonhole yourself to like one area that we don't want to work with you or whatnot. Just have a conversation, come to the information session, let us know what services you provide, and we can let you know, hey, I think that's a great opportunity. Or I've even had this in the past where somebody is selling a specific item, and I tell them very, transparently, like, Columbia University is not buying that item, but if you want to develop your company, if you want to develop your team, please come. And very oddly enough, that one thing that they offered, we now need, right? So I can never predetermine everything that we need, but I
Mhm.
always tell everybody transparently, right now at this current state, we're not purchasing that item, but you never say never.
Matter of fact, as I hear you, what came to mind, I have to resend you information about Solomon Green,
Okay.
because the more this whole issue, cybersecurity, matter of fact, have you ever met Clayton Banks from Silicon Valley?
Oh yes, I met him at when we used to do. I think it was I met him at one of the conferences that we were part of.
We uh, work, when I say we, the Harlem Tourism Board, the Chamber, Harlem Week, work with Clayton and Silicon Harlem for a number of reasons. Matter of fact, I have to talk to you online. Uh, we're looking at developing a program with Silicon Harlem, Columbia University, and City College to get uh, people to start focusing on the Go Harlem uh, website for the Harlem Tourism Board, to make that a major economic development initiative, using all of the new technologies that um, uh, students have, that I have no idea. It changes every 6 months with me. So, I was talking about doing a website, a major website. I think I was talking to my daughter, and I would say, "Yeah, we could do this," and she said, "They don't do that anymore. They can do this."
Things are changing very fast, very rapidly, and I feel like even partnering with Clayton in terms of cybersecurity would be major. I feel like cybersecurity is it's not spoken about it enough. Like, you are now seeing like very famous people being scammed out of their own bank accounts and reporting that
Not
out.
only, not
Like
only
these
people,
businesses, yeah,
cities, governments. But nevertheless, I say that to say on the 18th, Silicon Harlem will have a major conference. I just wanted to put that out there. But
yeah,
I also wanted to talk about Solomon Green, who specializes in. It may be hard to get Clayton, but Solomon, I have to resend you his information because it is so important, and we don't really know it. I Right before the holidays, we had a conference and we talked about that. But Charlene, how can people? Well, it's almost too late for this cohort now, but how can again
no,
people get?
it's not late. We haven't closed our application pool. We close our application on January 20th.
Okay,
And we have an information session tomorrow at 5. I always tell people, if you're not able to join an information session, just reach out to us. I'm happy to jump on a call, give you your own personal information session just so that you have the understanding. and clear insight of what the program deliverables are. I take that to heart very seriously. So if you apply to the program and if you have not attended an information session, we need to have a conversation because I need you to know what you're applying yourself into. I feel people just throw applications into the sky, but we need to know what is the delivery of the program, what the program's requirements are, is very important.
Well, it's extremely important for me, and I have a great deal of gratitude because as busy as you are now, I mean, you were busy before, and I felt bad. Now you are twice as busy.
Yes, I will be twice as busy, but I do have a
I hope that they give you some more support because I mean, if not, I'm sure that you're going to say, Tony, I can't be on your show
well,
anymore.
I'm happy to report that even though we're doing 2 tracks, I'll be in charge of track 1, and my colleague Matthew Simon is going to be in charge of track 2. We'll definitely try to collaborate together. We're going to be trying to deliver the program together, but like he's going to be the key point person for that track. I'll be the key point person for this track, and then kind of like overseeing the entire program, making sure that the delivery is smooth. Because I will say that when I first started here at Columbia and we would do our procurement events, I could probably scrape through 15 people to come to these procurement events, right? Now I'm averaging at 50 plus with our procurement events. And with now onboarding 2 tracks, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be at 100. So
My God.
yeah, it's a lot of work, but I feel the procurement events that we deliver, they have so much information. Our colleagues come, they talk about what their expectations are to work with them, what are the projects that they have coming down the pipeline. We have resources for them. All of this information is for free. It's just the association of being part of the CU Grow program, being an alumni, being a current participant, gives you access to this information. And I feel like that's the reason why people come year after year to our procurement events. Even after they graduate, they connect with other businesses and they work together. And it's a beautiful feeling. I love how people connect together. Like it's almost like their own little fraternity or sorority. Like you're part of this kind of like sister and brotherhood of working together and knowing that you're gonna really honor that trust.
And it doesn't hurt by being able to get some contracts with Columbia
No, it
University
doesn't hurt that
to
either.
keep to keep you happy and wanting to come back. But Charlene, it's always a pleasure. The second Tuesday of the month is always one that I look forward to, and I really missed you,
I'm
even
sorry.
though you know. And one, I think that you might have been on vacation, which I was happy for because I want to make sure that you're healthy. Because with all of the stuff that you're doing, you got to have some time for yourself.
Yeah,
But
I think for the last time you called me, I was in Alabama. This last week I was literally in Alabama. We arrived. It was literally a week-long trip. But I definitely would say if I would do it, I would do it again because it was very refreshing to see different people from different cultures, different states, and learning about what is their knowledge on this area, and me taking that knowledge and then hopefully applying it to the program. I feel like it was just a great professional development session of a week. It was just overloaded, and I still have notes to kind of regurgitate to just to
so now you're even smarter than you were before.
there was just so many topics. I'll definitely share the website so that you can see what some of the topic areas were and just the recognition of professors and students. They had research papers. It's a great educational week. There was just so much details that it was just you get a little overwhelmed with the information, so you kind of have to take a step back and like let me take my notes, let me gather my thoughts. But I would definitely do it again. It's a great experience.
Well, thank you, Charlene De La Cruz. I appreciate it. Please give Tanya my regards and look forward to. When do you have your graduation?
So our graduation is always in December. So now with 2 tracks, we have 2 graduations. So one will take place in December, and then the other one will take place in March.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll definitely report out as we get closer. But right now, if you are a construction business or a business that has a trade, please reach out to us and apply. Our information is all on our website. All the tracks information, all the information on the courses, and our email is there as well.
Well, again, this is something that even if you find that you may not qualify at the moment, there are other places that you can be pointed to. The most important thing, and I feel a little guilty about saying this, but if you don't know Tanya Pope or Charlene De La Cruz, and you have a business, and you may even want to consider getting work with Columbia University, then you have a problem. So, thank you so much, Charlene.
Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate you. Always looking for me, and I'm always looking for you. So I hope to see you again next month.
Next to the second Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
So again, this kind of brings us to the end of the show. Again, herbal bull, killing pests with herbs and plants naturally. I thought that was interesting. You probably won't hear that anyplace else. Because it's not mainstream. But nevertheless, that's what we do here on the Urbanology. So thank you so much for spending some time with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Matt McCoy and Jasmine and everybody on the Soul City team for giving us this platform. And of course, WACR 90.3 FM, which is our home base. And tune into WACR 90.3 FM every day if you can. Take care.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.